I'm recording. So first, before I start, let me activate a quick poll for everyone. I'm going to open up a poll for our participants. I'll give you about a minute to complete your answers here, but I want to okay. If you all could, you'll see a poll question that came on your screen. I want everyone to take a minute to just let us know, how do you rate your current knowledge? And you'll see you'll have options, and I see people completing it here, which is great. You have none, minimal, moderate, and extensive as your options here. I'll give folks about 20 more seconds to complete here. And for our presenters, just to let you all know, it looks like people are hovering around minimal, which is at about 33%, moderate at about 29%. So it looks like people are hovering between minimal and moderate as far as their answers for where they rate their current knowledge here. All right, you all have about 7 more seconds before the poll ends. All right, so the polling has indeed ended. Thank you all for taking a moment to complete that poll. So we'll go ahead and get started. And Anthony, we go to the next slide here. Again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's web event, the Effective Leadership Series, Part 1, the Attuned Leader. My name is William Moore. I'm with OJJDP's National Training and Technical Assistance Center, and as your technical host, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to discuss a few features of the WebEx platform and provide a few announcements to keep in mind. Please note that this webinar is indeed being recorded and will be published on our YouTube page. Past events are archived on NTTAC's YouTube page. For the transcript and supporting materials, please contact the OJJDP TTA Help Desk at OJJDP-TTA@USDOJ.gov. If you're having trouble uploading the event materials, please contact the help desk for materials at OJJDP-TTA@USDOJ.gov. For optimal audio, please dial out through WebEx to your phone line. When connected, a phone or headset icon should appear next to your name in the participants panel. At the end of today's webinar, there will be a Q&A session where the presenters will address some of the questions posed during the presentation. Please type your questions into the chat box as they arise. Instructions on how you can send a message in the chat is on this slide. For those participating in today's webinar as a group, please take a minute to help us count. If you're viewing by yourself, there's no need to type anything into the chat at this time. However, if you're viewing in a group, go to the chat window and type the total number of additional people in the room with you today. Attendees signed in will receive a feedback email with a certificate of attendance. Attendees joining as a part of a group should have received a group validation form. Please complete the form and send it to OJJDP-TTA@USDOJ.gov. This is a general layout of our web event today. Again, thank you all for joining us for today's presentation. I will now turn it over to our moderator, Beth Medina, for today's webinar. Beth, take it away.
Thank you, William. Hi, everybody. My name is Beth Medina. I am the CEO of the Innocent Justice Foundation and the Program Director of SHIFT. I have been working in some capacity with Innocent Justice for well over a dozen years and started out as volunteers. So it is my pleasure to be with you here today, and my extreme honor to be working with all the people that I get to work with in ICAC through our SHIFT program. So I just want to welcome you all and let you know that you can check out our website. We have just a load of resources there for people, and we look forward to being of support in any way we can to you guys. So I'm also going to introduce just a little bit two of the finest people I know, and I am so fortunate to get to work with. Carol Brusca is the embedded mental health professional for the ICAC team in New Mexico. She has been working with that team for well over 7 years and has been providing support and mental wellness education for them. She's been working with SHIFT for quite some time, just about that long as well. And we are so excited to have her on board as a team member. She's just fantastic, as you will all hear today. Anthony Mays is the commander of the ICAC team in New Mexico, as well as the human trafficking team. He has an extensive background in law enforcement and has been working with SHIFT for almost a decade, maybe a little more than a decade. But he is just a fantastic person for resources and has been a supporter of wellness for a very long time for his people. He's visionary in that respect, and so grateful to know him. So Anthony, I don't know if you can move along the slides. Thank you very much. So SHIFT started in 2009 doing trainings for Internet Crimes Against Children task force teams. And we just try to bring as much information as possible relating to mental health and wellness and how to support teams who are doing the work of rescuing children and keeping them safe. So today we're going to start another series just off of our last series on trauma. This series is going to be on leadership. And this is part 1 of that series, and it'll be a 4-part series. It is funded through a grant. We are funded through a grant from OJJDP, and we designed this program especially to speak to commanders of ICAC teams and people who supervise teams to prioritize wellness for themselves because it's an important part of and factor in having effective teams. So all of these, the material that you'll see in this series is designed to help support ICAC teams, but of course it's not limited to that. The material itself can speak to many people who are leading teams or supervising folks, and we hope you will find it valuable. And with that, having said that, I will turn the presentation over to Anthony and Carol. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Anthony Mays. I'm glad to have you guys here. It's again, it's definitely a pleasure to get a chance to share with you some of the things that we've learned throughout the years and how to lead our teams better and definitely make sure that they are healthy. And it's been really exciting to be part of this program. Again, as Beth mentioned, for over a decade. Being in law enforcement for over 32 years, I don't think we've always had the support we needed from our leadership. So I've been very fortunate that I've been able to be now in my position and be able to show how we can take care of our people better. So I'm very excited to be here in front of you today and discuss that. Carol?
Certainly. So good afternoon, everyone. So glad to be here. I'm Carol Brusca. Like Beth said, I am the embedded mental health provider for Anthony's ICAC and Human Trafficking Task Force. The reason that I really wanted to be involved in this leadership series in particular is because I can see what happens when you've got a great leader and what happens when you've got a leader that needs a little improvement. I know that Anthony's team is very fortunate that he's on board because he leads by example. He leads when the it going is tough, and he's supportive the whole way. So I couldn't ask for a better role model for a leader than Anthony, so I'm excited that he and I get to present today. So let's go ahead and get started. So the objectives today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to explore how you all can become an effective leader. If you're in a position where you are a leader, or you're in a position where potentially you might be a leader down the road, there's going to be some important things that we'll talk about. We're going to let you know the importance of wellness for success while in a leadership role, because leadership role is much more than just telling people what to do. It's being a guide, a mentor, and someone who can walk with your employees. So, and wellness is such a key in that, as if we're not role modeling wellness for ourselves, we won't be doing it. If we're not doing it for ourselves, we won't be role modeling it for others. And then learn the importance of self-compassion for success. And lastly, we're going to talk about the steps needed to create an effective and resilient team, because we want someone that's effective, efficient, and then able to bounce back during the difficult times.
So the amazing thing about SHIFT, and this presentation is designed to support ICAC teams and affiliates with the chronic exposure to being exposed to these child abuse materials. But what I have found, though, is work running a human trafficking task force. What we're going to be sharing with you today will definitely transfer over to other areas of work, like human trafficking, like homicide, like domestic violence. That's the unique thing about the SHIFT program, is that we can take these tools as a leader and apply them anywhere.
So what is an attuned leader? These were two particular quotes that we really liked. So a leader cannot stand alone, but must stand with the followers, interpret for them, strive to fulfill their hopes, and be the champion in the struggles of life. Leadership is achieved, not given. So I'd like you to keep that in mind today. And then also Theodore Roosevelt said, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So this series, in particular, this training today, is about the importance of connecting with your team and the steps to do that. So what is attunement? When we're talking about attunement in this framework, what we're talking about is how we respond and how we react to others. So it might be something like an adult seeing a baby crying, or recognizing the baby is hungry and then picking that baby up. So how we respond, and it's not something like somebody says, hey, I need something. It's the leader who pays attention and notices things beforehand, in the same way that you would if a baby was crying. It's that might be the adult that says, when your employee says, I'm fine, you know that you have to go beyond those words and into a deeper meaning of that, or a deeper understanding. It's how we form relationships. So if there's people that you're connected with, whether they're work people, friends, family, and you have a good connection with them, when you're not doing okay, they probably pick up on that. There are people that are not very well attuned, and you could be demonstrating all of the symptoms or the signs that you're not doing well, that you're struggling, and it goes right over their head. So what we want to talk about is, how do you become attuned? How do you be connected? How are you connected with people on a level above just the cursory, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. It's the ability to resonate with someone else's feelings, and it's the ability to understand what someone says is not always actually how they feel. So I might tell Anthony that I'm doing great, or he might tell me that he's doing fabulous, but I can see it on his face. I can see how he's moving. I can see in his body that things aren't as what he says. So that's my opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and become attuned to what he needs.
You know, it's interesting Carol brought that up, because I always recall thinking, as an attuned ICAC leader, understanding your people's feelings, their emotions, and how that impacts their job performance. I'll never forget an analyst that I brought on board. He was actually he had been in Iraq, and he had been several tours in different types of military duties, and he decided to leave the military and go to law school. And I brought him on as an analyst, and the guy had been in combat, you name it. And the guy was, definitely came across, he's a very confident individual. Well, anyway, him and his wife decided to start a family, and I had him as an analyst until he finished studying for the bar and going on to law school. And I went in his first day, and I said, look, I'm here to support you. You're going to be seeing very difficult. You're going to be looking at materials that are going to be very difficult to look at. It's going to be difficult for you to deal with some of these things, and I want you to know that I'm here to support you. And he says, oh, I'm fine. I've been in combat, and there's nothing can affect me. And within about a week and a half, I noticed that he seemed really down, and I could see that there was definitely a change in the way he was communicating with the team and with me. And I approached him and I said, hey, what are you doing okay? And he said, well, he goes, quite honestly, we're trying to have a baby. And the other night, these images keep on popping into my head. And he said, I just don't, he goes, it's hard for me to get out of them. And he goes, and I just don't understand why people can do this to children. And I think that's important to notice something like that. Notice that what your people are feeling, looking for those emotions. You're able to empathize with them and read the unspoken signals from those employees, and then be able to engage them and understand better. So, and again, listening actively, attentively, and listening to them and seeing how you can work with them. Now, I try to find common ground, and I told them, I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I started in this profession, when I started the task force, my youngest was just born. And I can totally understand what you're saying, because I felt the same way. And then we talked about some ways to deal with that. And he looked at me and goes, you know, this is a lot different from being out there. Even in combat, he said, what we're having to deal with, it really affected me, but thank you. So that's an important part, being an attuned leader, is noticing those kind of things.
So there are benefits of attunement, obviously, for ICAC leaders and for leaders in any field, actually. So if you are able to be attuned to not only yourself, but to those that you're working with, there's a greater likelihood that you will have reduced stress and you'll have an increase in resilience, or the ability to bounce back. So because if you are able to read what others are feeling and responding to, then you will be able to get on top of those before they begin a big problem. It's going to enhance your personal connections. So if people feel like you get them and you're on board with them and you're there to support them, there's a greater likelihood they'll have a better connection and they'll want to come to you when things aren't going great. It's the development of appropriate reaction. So you will understand when somebody responds in a way that otherwise you might be unfamiliar to you. So if someone kind of lashes out, but you've noticed over the last several days that they've been more withdrawn, that they've been more short-tempered, being an attuned leader will allow you to say, it's got to be something deeper than just their reaction to that particular instance. It's going to help you stay on task, because you will be able to be aware again of what is going on inside of you and what's going on inside of your team as well. And it highlights emotional intelligence. Now, for those who are not familiar with emotional intelligence, that's the capacity to recognize, to control, and express your emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships empathically. So that means you're able to understand what's going on with you and manage that on your own terms, and then also be able to respond appropriately. So if I wake up and I'm feeling like I'm really frustrated that day, then I can say to myself, what am I going to do today to manage that emotion so I don't take it out on others? It's going to increase your adaptability, so we will be able to be more flexible in situations of crisis, and particularly when you're working with high-stress jobs, you want to be able to be adaptable and flexible and go with the flow, because oftentimes things don't go as we'd like to expect. And it's going to build confidence, because you're going to feel good about what you're doing inside and internally. You're going to feel good about your wellness. You're going to be able to lead by example, and then have the ability to really feel great and build that confidence.
So benefits of being an attuned ICAC leader. So definitely, I love this quote, and actually Carol found this. I'm going to give her credit for that. Leaders who have the ability to control their minds and emotions help to guide those around them to develop their own self-knowledge and success. So what that means to me is really getting to know your people and noticing those little things, going for a walk, taking some deep breaths. Some of the things that I have practiced on my own and things that I shared with my analysts and I share with my team all the time is that I have told them, you know, you need to get up and go for a walk. You need to break away from that. Even now, working remotely, and we've been working remotely since the beginning of the pandemic, I will still call my people and check in throughout the day and ask, so what kind of breaks are you taking? Now, I'm happy to say that one of the positives of working remotely is my folks are taking more time, taking breaks, get a chance to visit with their family a little bit more, and it has helped with their wellness. So I think that's important as being a leader, is to be able to control some of the emotions and actually share that with them and then help them build from there.
So how will this help the team? So the team, if you've got an attuned leader, it's going to decrease the stress levels of the team. When the team knows that they have a leader on board who understands their needs, who can cut through when what they're saying is not actually matching what they're doing, it's going to decrease their stress because they'll feel like the leader is understanding them and is on board with them. It encourages the team to rise above conflicts. So when you've got conflicts within a team, which is natural, it'll help the team because everybody will have a sense of of what's going on with those individuals and how they can pull together their strength to get through problems. It's going to increase the team resilience. So the team's going to be able to bounce back because there's going to feel like there's a lot of support. There's going to feel like there's some forgiveness, some empathy, some understanding that might not be available on other teams. And provides a sense of agency. It's like we have a purpose for what we're doing. We know why we're here. We're all working on this task together. Even when things are difficult, we're in it together. It's going to increase creativity because when someone is attuned, when you've got an attuned leader and individuals on the team are attuned, there's going to be this freedom to express yourself in a different way than if you had a leader who was not attuned and was not understanding the individual's needs. So creativity is useful no matter what job you're in because you might be able to solve a case looking at things from a perspective you might not have originally thought of. You're going to be able to think of more streamlined ways to do things potentially. It also is going to promote individual growth, meaning that if you're feeling like you're accepted in your team and you've got a good place, excuse me, in your team and there's a supportive boss, then you might be more likely to stretch yourself and maybe try to take on a new task or learn a new method of doing something because you're going to feel safe and secure that you will be accepted in trying to do some new efforts.
You know, that brings to mind, Carol, some of the things that I've seen is that since I brought the team together, and we've mentioned that I have two different teams with ICAC and human trafficking, even though they work very close together, I've noticed that since we have these team meetings, we get a chance to talk about some of their, how they're feeling, how they're dealing with some of the images, how they're how they're dealing with some of the victims they're working with. But in turn, I've noticed now that they will reach out to each other. They'll have their own little calls, and if they have a question on the case, they're not afraid to ask someone else on their team. Then they don't. Because it's hard for law enforcement for us to ask for help for any reason, and I've seen a big change with that. Is that they'll actually go out of the way to ask someone else on another team within the ICAC and human trafficking world for assistance or some guidance, and it all comes down to. As a leader, I've brought them all together. I've showed them that it's okay to depend on each other, ask for help, and it can be for help for personal reasons because you're having issues dealing with things, or you can ask for help because you're having issues with a case. And that's what we want to see as a leader.
So what are the other benefits? Certainly, it can increase morale and decrease turnover and burnout. If you're feeling like you're accepted in the team, like you're allowed to be creative, like your boss understands what's going on, your teammates are available for you if necessary, it's going to increase your morale. It's going to be a place where you want to work. And because of the increase in morale, obviously there'll be a decrease in turnover, burnout. It's going to be the thing where people are requesting to join your team. I know Anthony talks about that, that people want to be on his team now. It's going to increase the harmony among teams. So when people, obviously we all know that when people get along together, there's more harmony. So if everybody is more receptive to looking beyond just the outward signs of what someone is experiencing and get a better, deeper level of understanding what might be going on potentially on a deeper level, that will be supported. And it's going to increase that harmony. Helping clarify the mission, when you understand what everybody's goal is, when you have an understanding of how you could work together, when you have an understanding from the leader what your mission is, then the whole team will understand the mission, and then it will be easier for everyone to work towards that. It obviously builds trust among the team as well. You've got someone in the leadership role who is accepting of you, who's empathic, who is allowing you to be who you are. The team picks up on that, and it encourages others to be as supportive as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I have so many stories where I have seen the benefits of this. One that comes to mind is when we had a really horrific case involving hands-on abuse, and there were several that day actually. And the next day, we went through the day, and my team held up, and they did great, and they pushed through, and we debriefed, and they went home. But the next morning I came in, and one of their team leads came up to me and said, boss, everyone had a rough day yesterday, and we're all talking about it. And it was really difficult for us. And we wanted to let you know. And they go, can we see Carol? And first they talked to me, and they stayed in there with me. And the team lead was like, he knew enough, and he was okay, and it really affected him, but he felt comfortable talking about that, and that's what we want. And I was able to, underneath my desk, I texted Carol and said, I'm going to need your help here. This is one of those 911 situations. And Carol showed up like within an hour with a box of tissue and plenty of water, and we met with the team, and she met with the team individually and was able to work through that. But that's what you want as a leader. You want your folks to be able to depend on each other and then know they can come to you to ask for that help.
And Anthony, if I could just add to that, I think that that whole situation went the way it did because they felt comfortable, they could trust you, that you wouldn't just say, toughen up, that you wouldn't just say, what do you expect? This is your job. Do you think you need to be off this case? You were able to listen to them and understand and then reach out for help through me. And then I was able to be there, and really what they talked about a great deal is they were so thankful that they were in an environment where they could feel free to request help when they needed it. So they were able to get through all of that, the difficulties, and they were able to come back and work hard again and not suffer long-term consequences. And it's because having an attuned leader makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's true. And, after, and again, doing this for as many years, I mean, it wasn't like this 25 years ago. I mean, I could have never asked for help. I mean, it was like you tough it out. I mean, we all know, those of you remember going through the police academy. I went through the police academy 32 years ago, and I remember blowing out, having water on my knee, and they just looked at me and like, look, either you tough it out or we kick you out of the academy. And it took me a year to get in there, going through the process. And I don't want anyone to ever feel that way. I had a huge turnover when I started developing the ICAC task force. I was seeing a turnover after about 18 months. I'd get somebody trained and get them to be forensically sound, and they would be right where I needed them to be. And I put a lot of training and time into them. And I said, wow, I need to do something different because I experienced this when I was working homicide and sex crimes at the Albuquerque Police Department. I saw that firsthand there, and now I was seeing it in ICAC. And I was able to decrease the turnover because I implemented the SHIFT program, and then I was able to add Carol on, and it made a big difference. I mean, my turnover went, and as Carol mentioned, I have folks, when I have a job opening, I mean, I have so many people putting in for one spot where in the past I'd have to go look for someone and ask them to join the team. So it's exciting that you're able to have that now.
So how do you become an attuned leader? You want to increase your own self-awareness. You want to be able to set some boundaries with others, and that means setting boundaries just means knowing what your limits are. So setting boundaries with respect to taking on what you can take on, but not more. Setting boundaries and being the role model to show that to your staff. You want to practice self-discipline. So when your team sees that you are the one that's not becoming excessively upset over things, or when your team sees that you're being self-disciplined about your own self-care, when you're being self-disciplined about trying to come in on time and leave on time. And then practicing empathy. All of those things are so key. So you want to, like I said, increase your self-awareness, because studies show that people who have a better self-awareness are better leaders. Learn to watch your emotions and reactions, and that's part of the self-discipline piece. And then look at how you feel and adjust your responses. Understand what motivates you as a leader. So are you in a leadership role because you were just kind of put there? Is it something that you were excited about for and strive to get there? Recognize that you might not always have consensus, but you can have harmony among your team. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not a good leader or you're not an attuned leader if you don't always have consensus. Because when your team understands where you're coming from as a leader, they are willing to go along even if they aren't in 100% agreement. And seek power not for its own sake, but as service to others. So how can you go about doing that when you're trying to get power as a way to help you to further the cause and further the mission?
You know, this week alone, one of my support personnel who takes on a lot, I mean, she's not sworn law enforcement, but her role is, I mean, she's in the trenches with support with law enforcement and doing all these cases. And she texted me and said, you know, I'm not feeling very well today. Would it be okay if I took the day off, or can I at least? She goes, I'll answer my text messages still, and I'll answer and I'll be there for you, and I'll answer my emails. But if I could just, and I'm like, no, you know, that's it. I told her, no, I don't want you to answer text messages. I don't want you to answer emails. I don't want you to do anything like that. I want you to rest and take care of yourself. And it's important as a leader that we recognize that, you know, because they know that, you know, they can turn to you when things are, I'd rather them tell me how they're doing and feeling better, because, I mean, quite honestly, it would be better. I mean, she could easily, everybody's working remotely, and she could just be at home and not say anything. If she thought that I was going to be the kind of leader that would say, you know, all right, well, you're sick, take sick leave immediately and don't bother. But she knows that I'm going to be there to support her, whatever she has to say. And that's important we do that.
So you want to notice your responses. You want to be a successful leader, you have to be curious about new people and all they have to offer. You want to make sure that you get feedback on how others perceive you. So even though we want to think, yes, we're a great leader and we don't need feedback, getting that feedback can actually be helpful in making us go from a good leader to a great leader. We want to pay attention to others, how others respond to us. So maybe we think that we're doing things that is really useful as an attuned leader, but we're not necessarily getting the feedback we want or getting the response we want. Maybe we just need to take a look at that. That's part of being an attuned leader, is paying attention to how we are responding and what steps we need to do to change or adapt to the situation. I'm not trying to say that we should just willy-nilly do whatever our staff wants and then let them be the leader vicariously through us. I'm saying take into consideration, and if someone says, when you are asking us to do something, it sounds like a demand as opposed to maybe a request. We can take a look at that, and maybe that's not accurate, but at least we can look at it and see if it's something that we need to change. Then, you know, you want to be mindful of your strengths and your weaknesses. You want to say, these are what I believe my strengths are. These are where the areas where I really need to increase my skills. So maybe I'm not very good at taking time to really listen in the midst of a crisis, but overall I'm doing some other things really well. So how do I change and adapt? You want to promote honest and respectful dialogue among your team. You want to develop leadership skills in others, because you know that you won't be in this job forever. And if you can get some people beneath you and groom them to be strong leaders when you're gone, that's going to continue the mission of your agency. You want to ask for team input when it's appropriate, and you want to listen to the needs of your team. You want to make sure that you're keeping your word. So you want to listen, you want to be present, and that means when someone comes in to talk to you, you put your phone down, you stop looking away from your computer, you put everything else down and actually give them the attention that they're requesting. So you want to be actually listening and hearing. You want to take a deep breath when you're getting stressed so that you can get some oxygen back into your brain and you can think clearly to respond to what it is they have to say.
Yeah, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, Carol, because that's something that I multitask everything, it seems like. In fact, right now in front of me, I have 3 computers open, and that's just the way I've always functioned. And it's easy to do that as a leader if somebody comes in your office, but it's important we always listen. I can't stress that enough, that you listen, because they may say something, and even when you're listening to something, you're thinking that, well, why are you running this by me again? But they know you're there to listen. So the times when it is difficult and they're having those issues and they're having those moments where those images are flashing in front of them when they're with their family, they know that you're going to listen. They know they can get some. They know that you're going to be there to support them, and that's really important.
So what is the roadmap to attunement? How do you become attuned, and how do you become an attuned leader? There's actually what we consider 4 stops into the attunement. So the first is self-knowledge, so understanding yourself. And then leadership qualities. So obviously those are leadership qualities that you can support people, you can guide them, you can get the work done in a timely, efficient manner. Core values and vision. And what do we mean by core values? Those are the fundamental beliefs of a person. So what are the things that drive me? What is it that I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe to be true? And these are the guiding principles that dictate how I behave and how I help people understand the difference between right and wrong. And then what are some areas that I would like to work on? What are 2 tools I can use to build my attunement? And what is my vision for my team? And how can I advance that vision? So that's kind of what we consider the roadmap. It's going to be self-knowledge, leadership qualities, core values, and the vision for our team.
And you know, it's the vision for your team is important. And I know many of us, we have a mission. Like for example, when I started the task force over 11 years ago, there was just one other person in me. And I had this vision to have a team, to have a mobile forensic lab, to have a electronic detection canine. I didn't envision what I have today, that I'm going to have victim advocates, and I have support personnel, and I have an analyst, and I have agents, and I had the mobile forensic lab. I have all of that. But part of that vision included is making sure that my people are happy and the retention is going to be there. As managers, we put a lot of money in our people, and but it isn't just about money. It's about making sure when our people leave, they're still they remain healthy, and they can go on to their next job or retire and be healthy doing that. Or when they go home that night to their family or the significant other, that they're healthy and it's not affecting them. As you guys all know, we see it all the time now, and I get several different police publications in my emails every day. Suicide is high among law enforcement. It's a tough time for all of us right now with the current climate. The pandemic was bad, and then everything else is going on. This cannot be a worse time in history, and I'm telling you from my experience. And so being attuned and noticing that as a leader is important, more so than any other time in your life in running your teams, because there's so much more on their plate other than their job. So being in tune and understanding that is important. I'm sorry, let me see this place. There we go.
So the roadmap to attunement, obviously we have to have a knowledge of ourselves, and we gain this knowledge by reflection and skill building. We notice how we're feeling about things, we reflect on the feedback that we get from others, and then we build skills around the areas where we're not as strong. We know the qualities of good leadership, and that can be, we can learn that through understanding what we've had as a good leader, and we can learn that by getting feedback again from our staff. We have to understand what is most important to us. If we know what's important to us, we will be able to display that to our staff, so they will understand what is important to us as a team. And then you want to be able to create a vision for your team. So when you look at the qualities of a good leader, you want to have honesty, communication, confidence, commitment, positive attitude, creativity. You want to be able to empathize. You want to make sure that you are accountable and hold your team accountable, enthusiastic, and you want to be responsible. And then understanding what's important to you, you want to be able to think of personally what is important to you and how does that impact what your mission is and of your team. And then lastly, how do you create a vision? You want to be clear about your desired destination and outcome. You want to communicate a strong purpose, set goals, and involve your team. And this means going back to the mission of your agency and seeing how your mission of the team aligns with the agency mission.
Yeah, and that being said, as part of that vision, when you have a healthy team, they're in tune with that vision, and you're in the vision together. You work closer together. You're motivated and moving forward. Again, we have been working remotely. Our team has for a number of months now. And, we're still going out on calls now, and they're helping on warrants and executing warrants and everything else, and going on doing investigations. But it's funny because I sent two of my agents out to the prison to interview someone on a human trafficking allegation. And the first thing they said, yeah, boss, we know, wear PPEs and make sure the body camera's on. We got everything covered. I go, we're good. And I said, okay, and you guys take care of yourselves. That's what comes first, priority. And then everything else is part of policies and procedures. But they know that, and but you could just hear that in their tone. It's not like you're making them do this and they have to do it, and they're like, oh gosh, we have to do this. It's like they're excited about doing it, and they know part of the policy is, to wear PPEs and to wear a body camera and how to and what to do to moving forward to get the job done. But they're making light of it because understanding we have that relationship now, that I support them, and part of the vision is for them to be healthy and make sure they can get the job done. Okay, so this is a great quote, and again, something Carol found for us, and I won't give Carol the credit for writing it though, but it is better to lead from behind and put others in front, especially when you celebrate victory when nice things occur. You take the front line when there is danger, then people will appreciate your leadership. And that was from Nelson Mandela. And that's very true as a leader. I'll always get my hands dirty. Whatever I expect my people to do, I will do the same thing. I mean, when we do warrants, even though I say, well, I'll go in and help clear the rooms. They're going, oh, boss, you need to stay out. You're the commander. You need to just watch us from the perimeter. And I don't have a problem doing that. And there's many times that we've got in 4-man teams, and I'm getting my hands dirty and clearing the rooms, searching people, searching a residence, searching an individual, doing the interviews. Leading by example is important, okay? And that being said, also, it transfers over to wellness and how we treat our people, and creating that type of bond, being in front and showing good example.
Okay, guys, we have a few questions here that we're gonna give to you. So the first question that I've got is, how do you deal with employees who, after providing guidance, continued encouragement, and giving them the resources and tools to succeed, refuses to do their part? How do you deal with an employee like that? Anthony, maybe you can speak to that.
So the employee is refusing to do their part after giving them guidance, and sorry, I put on a timer so we could start the questions. Good timing. So my understanding is that you've given this person guidance, and you're still having some issues with them. Is that correct?
That is what was communicated to me, that how they've continued giving encouragement and giving them resources and tools, and the person still does not seem to or refuses to do their part in their job.
Okay. All right. So I've dealt with that, of course, being in the position I've been in for a number of years. So what I've done is I've sat down there with that individual to try to determine what where the issues are. You know, I prefer to deal with things direct, especially being in law enforcement. I don't necessarily involve HR in every situation. So I would sit down and talk to the individual, get to know them better. Of course, not being confrontational. Maybe figure out what's going on. Figuring out what's going on at work. Maybe figure out what's going on at home. Maybe that individual is going through something personal at home and it's starting to affect their work environment. So try to identify that. Sometimes employees don't want to share that with you. And again, that's why it's important to build that relationship. I would do it where away from everyone, maybe take that person for coffee, lunch or something, maybe or someplace quiet. And then talk to them about what's going on and see how, and then turn it around and see how can I help you get through what you're going through right now. So that way we can, so you're able to do the job. And then if all that doesn't work, maybe it's time for that person to transfer to a different position if that's an option. Sometimes I've had individuals where I've tried to make things the best for their work life. I couldn't necessarily affect their personal life, but I could through their work life be more flexible with their schedule, and it still didn't work for them. So maybe thinking about another area they could transfer to if those things don't work, both professional and personal.
Great. Thank you, Anthony.
Sure.
So we have another question here, and maybe, Carol, you can help with this. How does body language play into being an attuned leader?
That's a great question. So it's important, I mean, not like you have to be a master's degree in body language, but we all know what we do in our body when we're not feeling good, whether we're feeling angry, whether we're feeling sad. So being attuned to that is absolutely crucial if you have the ability to do that. Now, if you're not quite sure about body language, you can certainly look online about some of body language in and of itself to see, but then also understand that each person might have individual body language that doesn't fit generically across all domains. So you might see someone who doesn't make eye contact very much, but that could do with something about their growing up, or that could have something to do with what was expected in their culture. So don't assume that every single person's body language is going to be something you could read out of a book about, but you will be able to tell a great deal by understanding someone's body language, particularly if their body language does not match up with what they're saying.
Can I add something to that too, Beth?
Sure.
Could I? So that's an excellent question, and we actually did a presentation this morning talking about interviewing and so on. And Carol's right. I mean, culture, their upbringing, depending what part of the country. I mean, it's just everyone responds differently. One of the things that I've noticed is once you get to know your employees, and something simple, I know this is reading your employees, going out to lunch with them and looking at their body language, looking at how they respond to something, how they respond when they're in a good mood or something difficult in their life. Now, the analyst that I mentioned at the beginning of our presentation that was in the military, I picked something up from him just walking in his office. I could see it in his face and his shoulders, the way he was slumped over. I could tell something was going on from any other day, from day one when he first started with me. There was definitely something going on. So looking for those indicators, and as Carol mentioned, I actually bought a couple of books about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I found on Amazon about body language. They helped a little bit, but I think it's really important as a leader that just little things like that, going out to lunch with your folks, getting them to loosen up and talk a little bit more about their personal life, what's going on in their life, helps you read them a lot better. So, and that's all part of that. I mean, it's like the way we deal with, you know, when you're interviewing a suspect, we want to sit there and get them to talk and try to read them. Not saying that your employees are suspects, but getting to know them, read them, and you have plenty of time to do that. Just getting to know your people, and then you'll see that in the body language.
So another question that we have here is, where does support from other leaders fit into this idea of attunement for a leader? I'm assuming that might have something to do with maybe mentorship from one leader to another.
Well, I can tell you as an ICAC commander, I've had we set up regions, and I know that, like, within my region, I'm the senior commander. I've been around the longest, both in as a commander in age. Well, one of the senior commanders, I think there's one other commander that's senior to me. But anyway, just getting to know each other and depending on each other. I've had other commanders reach out to me and ask me for guidance, especially some of the newer commanders, on some of the issues that they're having, some of the things that they're seeing firsthand. I think that's important when we do that. I mean, as cops, it's always been hard for us to ask for help because we want to have the answers for everything. As human beings, I mean, sometimes it's even difficult for us to ask for directions. So I think by reaching out to other people that have been in this profession, that understand how to get things done, is important. So just reaching out to someone else, another leader. Sometimes those leaders are not, the people above you are sometimes not the best leaders to reach out to. Sometimes you have to reach out to someone that's doing something equal to what you're doing, that may be in another state.
Thank you, Anthony. I think we're going to have to wrap up the questions, but I want to say I have the questions here, and what we'll do is in other parts of the series, because I think these questions will fit in nicely in other parts of the series, so I'm going to keep these questions and we will fit them in to other segments of the series as we continue. I want to thank both Anthony and Carol for all the excellent information. And again, just remind everyone that you can go to shiftwellness.org to find information. You can email me directly if we can be of any support to you. And for ICAC teams and affiliates, and really anybody who works in the field of child protection, we're happy to help support in any way we can. Thank you so much. William?
All right, great. Thank you very much, Beth. I appreciate that. And again, thank you to our audience members for joining today. Thank you very much to our presenters, to Beth, to moderator Beth, to Anthony and Carol for an absolutely great presentation. Before we wrap up today's webinar, we have just a few brief reminders and a poll question. So first off, make sure you stay in touch with OJJDP's NTTAC by following us on Facebook or joining our listserv. And also, if you'd like to get in contact with OJJDP, feel free to contact the OJJDP Help Desk. The contact information is included on this slide. Do you have a training and technical assistance need? Well, if so, please submit a request via OJJDP's TTA 360 platform. As a reminder, this event was recorded. Our webinar will be linked to our YouTube page. Past web events are archived on NTTAC's YouTube page as well. For the transcript and supporting materials, please contact the OJJDP TTA Help Desk at ojjdptta@usdoj.gov. And we have a couple of slides here. We're going to go over a few additional webinars that we have in the future, including with our colleagues with the Innocent Justice Foundation. Please note that on the Wednesday, the 14th, we will have part 2 of the series, Self-Compassion for Leaders, hosted by our fabulous presenters that you just heard from, Anthony and from Carol. So please be sure to register for that event. We also have part 3. I am off of my numbering, my apologies. Part 3 of our leadership series that will come up on Wednesday, October 28th. Please be sure to register for that one as well. And we have a couple of more events here. We have a few webinars with our colleagues with Zero Abuse Project coming up, one this Thursday, and then we have another one on October the 13th that we will come up. These are for individuals, for anyone to join. However, please note that the one for forensic interviewers is for prosecutors. And then finally, we have our events with our colleagues with the Western Regional Children Advocacy Center, one coming up on Tuesday, October the 6th, and then another coming up October the 20th. Please be sure to register for those events as well. Anthony, I believe that's all there. Yep. So finally, I'm going to end with a poll question. I'm going to open up one final poll question for our audience to take a few minutes to complete. So if you see on your screen, you should see a poll question that states, how do you plan to apply the information that you learned during this web event? Please note that this is multiple select, meaning that you have the option to go in and select multiple answers here. So please feel free to select as many answers as you like here to let us know, how do you plan to apply the information from this web event? Again, thank you all for joining us today. I'll leave this poll question up. It'll be up for about another minute and 15 seconds. But with that being said, everyone have a wonderful and great afternoon, and looking to see you all on our next webinar. Take care. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, William. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.